On today's show, your San Diego Padres are finished with those silly little Atlanta Braves, and they're heading to the NLDS to face off against who else? We wouldn't have it any other way. The Los Angeles Dodgers, recapping this game that saw some heroics from Manny Machado and Jackson Merrill, especially. The Phenom continues his rookie campaign, but unfortunately, a little bit of bad news regarding one Sir Joe Musgrove. So lots to get into, as always. Let's do it.
You are Locked On Padres, your daily San Diego Padres podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Locked On Padres podcast, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day for Thursday, October 3rd. As always, I'm your host with sometimes, occasionally, but certainly not always the most, Javier Reyes. You can follow me on Twitter at Javipeno, Javiipeno, or at @L_Padres, or you can check out my work at the website Just Baseball, where I write about stuff, and I also host a podcast there called Baseball versus the World. Yesterday's episode was about very silly regular season awards, if you guys are curious about that. The Chapel Roan Award, the We're So Back Award, the Tom Brenneman Award for biggest media fail, the best vibe person. Don't worry, I did some Padres bias stuff on there, so go check that out, guys. But on today's episode of Locked On Padres, we are breaking down last night's game and all that it entailed. The Padres moving on to the NLDS, even though it did get a little bit scary on multiple occasions, I feel like, in this game, despite how they did have, it was basically in their control for the majority of it, but it was still a little bit scary. And you know what? Scary stuff is what happens in the postseason. That's just what it's like. I remember, I don't know if I joked at it on Monday's podcast or Tuesday's podcast with Jake about how, like, the dirty secret about sports playoffs is that it's pretty miserable when it's your team in there because you're just nervous the entire time. It's really, really scary. Obviously, it's better than the latter, or the other, I should say, which is just that your team never goes anywhere and you never have anything to root for. I'm just saying, man, it's freaking tough sometimes. It really is. It really is. So that's one thing I understand for the Dodgers fans, I guess. But today's show, guys, is also brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. The right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your baseball rivals. Book today on Booking.com, the official accommodation partner of Major League Baseball. Get the Booking.com app today. Oh man, and today we're in a good mood. We're partying for a little bit, at least today, or at least last night, and then today, and then Friday, and then they face off against the Dodgers for game 1 on Saturday. That should be a lot of fun. But let's kick it off, man. First of all, the vibes. Once again, fantastic. Yes, I must admit, the towel thing. It reminds me of the Steelers, although that seems to be like a common thing. I saw that the Brewers were doing their own towel thing too. Is that just like a thing for this postseason? I don't know if that's like a thing that all teams, or at least a majority of teams, are doing. I could be wrong. Maybe that's just, I don't know. I'm just wondering. But the vibes were great once again. We did not have an Emma Stone sighting. Still have not seen her. I don't know where she is. We need your help. Maybe in LA. Maybe. We might see her in LA. Maybe. We'll have to see. Last time, I think she was at the Mets game, if I'm not mistaken. But, we did get another celebrity, though. We got Tony Hawk. Tony Hawk, a huge character in my childhood, for let it be known. You guys might be familiar with me. I'm a big nerd on the side. I know it's hard to tell with my style, with my stature, with my Pikachu standing here, that I am indeed a nerd. And the Pro Skater games when I was growing up were absolutely dynamite. Pro Skater 3, literally one of the highest acclaimed games in all of history. So that was really cool seeing him there. And of course, they get it done behind one Sir Joe Musgrove, who in this game goes 3 2/3, gives up 1 earned run, no walks, 4 Ks. We're going to talk a little bit more about him and his start, and we're going to save that for the next segment because that is a whole nother thing that we got to talk about. But for starters, in terms of this game, other than that, it starts off not so great. The Padres start the game in very 2023 Padres fashion. What I mean by that is just a really poor situational hitting on the Padres' part. I understand this is the postseason, so it's kind of hard to like make entire, general indictments on a team. It's just, you just can't be like that. You can't be like, wow, they just failed to do. It's baseball. Like, you could just have a bad 24 hours and you're out. So that's what happened here. Luis Arias gets a single, then Tatis gets a single, then Profar reaches on fielder's choice, bases loaded with nobody out, and then Manny Machado swings at 2 pitches that are a little bit outside the zone, and then Max Fried just whirls one It was a nasty pitch, don't get me wrong, but kind of right down the middle, and Manny Machado strikes out. Then Jackson Merrill, he hits into a fielder's choice. Luis Ariz out at home plate, and then Xander Bogaerts also into a fielder's choice, although it almost looked like Jackson Merrill was safe at second. Unfortunately, wasn't. In my opinion, the Bogaerts at bat, look, Bogaerts, we know, like, this is a guy that we're just hoping can possibly show up in the postseason. I don't know if it's going to happen. I'm hopeful with his resume that it will, but still very nervous about him. Jackson Merrill's at bat wasn't great, especially because it was an outside the zone pitch. And then Manny Machado's bat obviously wasn't great too either with 3 straight strikes. I don't know if you guys remember, but about a month ago, I mentioned it was a game against the Giants and Logan Webb, who's a very, very good pitcher for the San Francisco Giants. One of the only like farm system kind of developments that really turned out great for them. And I talked about in that game they did score a run, I believe, in the first, but then it was very eerily similar. And the reason that I complained about it on Twitter was because, I don't know, it just reminded me of like, that's the type of pitcher you could see in the postseason. And that's what Max Fried is. Max Fried has been generating like a 50 plus ground ball rate. I'm pretty sure this year at a 50% rate. He's been amazing, Max Fried. So he's the type of pitcher that wants you to swing early and swing at some of his pitches that are a little bit outside the zone so he can generate ground balls, generate potential, double plays and what have you. And that's what happened here. The Padres were swinging at a lot of pitches. They weren't very patient, and it was just a little bit annoying. And it reminded me so much of that Logan Webb game in which they didn't end up scoring. Now, granted, it didn't end up mattering because the Padres did end up scoring more and winning that game. And this one they did too. They do end up knocking out Max Fried, but it's just, again, I'm just doing tiny little critiques of the team. Did not like their situational hitting to start off. And when you go up against some other great pitchers for the rest of the postseason, you're going to have to be careful. But I would say for a guy who kind of toys with you, a pitcher like Fried, who's very, very good, I just would have appreciated if they didn't necessarily swing at every single pitch, right? Like, but that's just me. That's just me. It ends up working out because Fried only lasts 2 innings. So you can't even say that the Braves, they got their guy and he did not show up for them. And he had been really dealing and looking like his usual self for a while now. The Padres getting their runs from a variety of sources. Namely, though, Mr. Kyle Higashioka starting things off in the bottom of the 2nd inning. What an inning that was. But once again, the Padres kind of like died after that inning. Don't get me wrong, it was a great inning. Kyle Higashioka. I mean, we talked about it before the playoffs that this is a guy who became like an above average regular at bat. I think about a 106, 110 WRC plus at times. And he just slugs the ball. And if he's going to play decent defense, that's all you can ask for, right? He's either an extra base hit or a strikeout. That's really all you can ask for a catcher. There's only like 4 or 5 in the league, one of them being on the Dodgers, one of them being on the Brewers, that you can genuinely look at as like, wow, that guy's just in a vacuum, a great offensive player. It's very rare to have that. So Higgy coming up huge again with a home run in this game. Same thing as yesterday. Love to see it. And then with Luis Ariz getting a single right after that. Luis Ariz off to a blistering start, by the way, in the postseason, hitting, just 330? Really? Hold on. Really? He's only hitting 330? That's weird. I thought he was hitting better than that, but whatever. He gets a single right after that for the Pods, and then they just continue to, unload. Jerkson Profar gets a single because, of course, he does, as well as Tatis. Bases loaded. Manny Machado doubles to left center. He's been needing that, and I mean that too, because Manny Machado, and we've talked about this before, I think that sometimes the playoff thing gets overblown with him, but it's not entirely unfair. It's one of those things where like you look at his overall numbers in the postseason, and I kind of understand some of the slander given a player of his stature. This is not just like a fringe, pretty good player like a Jake Cronenworth or a Donovan Solano. This is a guy who's supposed to be like one of the best on the team, if not in all of baseball and among his position at third base. And he hasn't always produced. He's had some big hits, namely the Cardinals series when he hit that solo shot to go back-to-back with Tatis, and they ended up tying the game. That was nice, but overall he has struggled. So it's really nice to see him drive in a bunch of runs in this one. But before we continue recapping, before we continue talking about this and some of my other observations, I need to take just a second to talk to you about some of our sponsors. And one of them is the one you heard at the top of the show, guys. That is Booking.com. They are sponsoring today's episode. And let me tell you, with hotels, bed and breakfast, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more, Booking.com has you covered when it comes to all of your travel sort of needs. Even if your travel needs include traveling to a rival city. Maybe you're going to make a trip out to LA, you San Diegans, or New Jersey San Diegans in my case. Well, guess what? Booking.com has you covered. You can check out the right stadium cuisine. They'll give you all the best recommendations, variety of choices across all of the US. You can go incognito to your baseball city rivals, all sort of things. It's just fantastic, and they deliver exactly the right paths and different travel information right to you. So go check it out, guys. Download the app or just check out the app online, whatever you want to go. Booking.com, booking.yeah. And just like that, everybody, we are back here on the Locked On Padres podcast, thriving and vibing. As always, Manny Machado, as I was saying before we headed into the break, he gets the nice double to make the score 3-1 after having struck out, by the way, as we mentioned before, with the bases loaded in the previous inning. He needs it. Heading into last night, Manny Machado was rocking just a 702 OPS in the postseason, which is extremely not great. Now, don't get me wrong. Some of it, okay, you're young players struggle a little bit, but even still, that is not good for a player of his stature to have that sort of note. So hopefully he can really have that big postseason that we've always wanted from him, and that what a lot of fans of his have always wanted. So that was really great. And then Jackson Merrill, Foolish Baseball, if anybody isn't familiar, had a really funny tweet saying like Jackson Churio of the Milwaukee Brewers and Jackson Merrill of the Padres are like, they're just too young to understand that you're not supposed to be this good immediately in the postseason. He rips not just a hit, but a triple, allowing 2 more runs to score for the Padres. So him and Manny and Higgy, the heroes on offense of the night. Although, don't get me wrong, they still did get some other hits. I will give them credit. Well, the Padres did not score for the rest of the game after that bottom of the second inning, which is very similar to last night. I did complain about that. They did at least put on some pressure, right? Like they did get more than one hit. They didn't just go 1, 2, 3 for the rest of the game, which is something that I didn't like. Arise finishes with 2 hits. Tatis 3 for 3 with a walk in this one. He's been on fire to start. Jurickson Profar had his 1 single. You had the Manny Machado 2 RBI double. You had Jackson Merrill get 2 hits in this one, as well as a double in the, I think it was the bottom of the 8th inning, if I'm not mistaken. Or was it bottom 8 or was it bottom 7? I forgot which one it was, but he does rip a double there. So I did appreciate that they at least got more hits than they did last time, but I will say that even still, you got to keep the pressure on. You know what I'm saying? You want to see, hopefully, in this next series against the Dodgers, who you're going to try and get into that bullpen, got to attack it. You know what I mean? You got to attack their starters, especially because they're a little bit, lacking in starting pitching right now. So that's where the Dodgers' weakness is, although the Padres might be lacking too now. But overall, not annoyed with the offense. Is just, hopefully they can just be a little bit better than a great first impression, I guess, where the aura is just through the roof to start the game. And then after that, they kind of got quiet. So hopefully they can do that come Saturday. But otherwise, Joe Musgrove, let's talk about it. Joe Musgrove ends up leaving this game. And it is a shame because, guys, it's going to be forgotten, but he showed up. I mean, he looked awesome. 12 whiffs in just those 3 and 2/3 innings? 3 2/3 innings. At one point, he just does a weird shrug thing. He throws his 2 slowest pitches of the night. Kyle Higashioka, being the catcher, being the genius and lovely man that he is, immediately notices something's up. And it didn't look like it, really. Like, it really didn't. And instead, unfortunately, we learned that it was something. In terms of the updates, in terms of from the Padres themselves, it sounds like it is some, forearm tightness? I just want to make sure I get the exact wording correct with this one. Hold on one second, folks. I just think that, overall, you're just kind of like, the vibes are still great. Don't get me wrong. The vibes are still great. I want to be very, very clear about that. But it is a bummer seeing the Padres lose Joe Musgrove in this game after it looked like we were in for a classic. It really does. It looks like we're in for a classic. Unfortunately, though, unable to finish the game with that injury. I believe it was forearm tightness. I don't have it right in front of me because for some reason my Twitter is not loading, and that is the latest we've heard. Right elbow tightness. So not forearm, but right elbow tightness is the official word for now. Look, Musgrove, how do I put this? I don't mean to relitigate the kind of arc that he's had for a while now. And it's not the arc that some people think, which is that ever since he got paid, he's been bad. That's not true. It's just objectively not true. Shut down end of last season, comes into this year, still clearly hurt and razzled. That's always a bad time. Heads to the IL again, comes back off, looks a little bit better, heads to the IL. He's out for a while, then comes back off the IL and looks like he's fully back again. And I shouldn't even say look. He was great. His velocity was up. Everything was great. He had some absolute gems. Remember when he nearly had a perfect game again against the Mets? Remember that? That was absolutely nuts. That was about a month ago. Specifically, yeah, he had 7 innings, only 1 hit and 9 Ks, no runs, no walks. Like, he really looked like he was truly back, and he was on fire. Like I said, 12 whiffs in this game in just a limited amount of time. It looked like we were getting another gem performance, with the exception of the 1 hit he ends up, or the 1 run he allows, which was Michael Harris, who ripped the double to start the game, and then Ozuna hit a sacrifice fly after someone moved him over. That's fine, but it was just like, maybe we should have known. Maybe we shouldn't have, like, I don't know, gotten too excited about this. I almost blame myself for that, but it really looked like he was back. But repeating that arc that he's had from last year, it just feels like that's never a good sign for you to just keep having to head back to the IL for things like this, especially specifically right elbow tightness, the elbow, all that stuff. Prepare for the worst if I'm a Padres fan. I said that when he went down for the second time. Over the course of the season, and don't get me wrong, I appreciate that he came back and was really instrumental in giving the Padres the second half push. But even still, I was saying, like, hey, expect the worst, because that is what I think what we might be seeing here. I'm not going to say the procedures that may occur, but it's possible this guy might be out until like 2026. It's just that this keeps popping up over and over, and that's a bad sign. You can hope, right? There's still hope. Maybe Musgrove has still got something, and it really is just something that he's got to work through, and maybe he can be back later. But that just usually does not seem to be the case with an injury like this. So expect the worst, guys. I imagine that by the time you guys are listening to this podcast, I'm recording it right after the game, so you guys in the morning, afternoon, whatever, we'll probably get some more detail. But I imagine, I'd expect that we might hear that he's done for the rest of the playoffs at minimum for now. And then maybe you'll hear later on if there's any further steps to take. But the fact that this isn't just his first time that this has happened, he's had some re-injury flare-up, it says a lot. And that stinks, because this guy is the heart and soul of the pitching staff as far as I'm concerned. And dare I even say the heart and soul of the entire team. Being the San Diego native, being the first no-hitter guy in Padres franchise history. It sucks, man. It sucks. I don't really know what else to say there. But I will say, in terms of just this game, which is all we can go by for now, bullpen really picked up. And this is one of the things for why we're really excited about this Padres team, is even if this Padres team does not keep up the pace of hitting in high leverage situations that they had all year, the fact that you can count on a really good rotation, and especially a really good bullpen, the best in baseball in the second half, that's what feels good about this. Yes, Brian Hoeing ends up giving up 1 run specifically to our man, Jorge Soler. Wait, was it Soler? Was it? How did the Braves score? I'm confused. Marcelo, was it Soler? That's weird. I don't know. I don't know why my app is freaking out right now, but whatever. A solo shot from Jorge Soler, and then a Michael Harris home run in the top of the 8th inning was the last scare for the Padres, making it a 1-run game. It was off of Jason Adam, who I guess you could argue was due. Man, I hate relievers sometimes, but for the most part, Jeremiah Estrada, Brian Hoeing, Tanner Scott, Jason Adam, they used all of their best guys. And that's what they were hoping for. They wanted to make sure the series was done, especially because when you're going to have 2 days off, you are totally down with using up your bullpen and whatnot. So Cease is probably going to be the game 1 starter, I would imagine, on Saturday. And I imagine that, depending on what happens with Musgrove, that Darvish is probably going to be back in the rotation, probably as the 3, maybe. I'd be very curious to see what they use with Martin Perez now. He was a guy that I viewed as like a piggyback starter potentially. I still don't necessarily trust him. I think that while his ERA was low in the regular season, there's still something about him that I'm like, let's see how this all pans out. You know what I'm saying? I think that the FIP really shows you he's getting a little bit lucky, but at least he did show an uptick in strikeout usage. So maybe he's the guy that you try and use in a game 2, but we'll see. I think that still remains to be seen. But now that we have this injury to Musgrove, all options have to be considered, obviously. And it sucks, man, because this is one of the advantages that the Padres had over a lot of teams, especially the Dodgers, who had lost Tyler Glasnow, right? Where you didn't know what they were going to get out of Clayton Kershaw, and you don't even know what you're going to get out of some of their pitchers. And Yoshinobu Yamamoto is great, and I know that the Padres have been really good against him, but is that more fluke, or is he finally going to figure out how to pitch against the Padres? So that was the one thing that was really unfortunate about the last night's game, because now it throws the entire rotation into a big question mark spot. But at least we know this bullpen's so good, man. Like, some really, really good bullpen pitchers that we've got here, man. You absolutely love to see it. This Padres team, it's just been nonstop excitement and joy for basically the whole year. It really has. I know a lot of people are, once again, every single time he makes a play, Jackson Merrill, everyone's talking about how he's the rookie of the year. I am of the opinion that it genuinely can be both. I really, really do believe that. I know Padres fans don't like to hear that, but that's what it feels like. Hey, we'll just have to see how it pans out in LA, guys. But we're not done. I just want to give some final thoughts about this game, and then maybe even talk a little bit about the Dodgers series, and then just what's going on around the rest of baseball. But first, I need to take a second to talk to you about a couple of our sponsors. First of them being over at FanDuel. Classic FanDuel, guys. And here is the thing. If you're an NFL fan, if you're an any sport fan, don't get me wrong, but NFL fans, you're right in the thick of it right now, and you can get the big return to start off your season with a FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. When you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same exact page in the app where you place your bets. FanDuel is just nifty and convenient like that. They are all about that quality of life stuff when it comes to their app, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet on FanDuel, guys. That is one heck of a deal. Go check it out. WNBA, MLB, NBA, NFL, whatever it is, go check it out. FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. Check it out. And, of course, we're not done, though. We're not done, guys. You know that a Locked On Padres podcast would not be complete without shouting out our good friends over at Prize Picks. It is the #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 10 million members and counting. That's right. This is big stuff, folks. Everybody loves Prize Picks, and it's great. All you have to do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and then watch those winnings roll in, possibly to 100 times your money. That's right. And the app now, let me tell you, it is also available. You can get in on the action in over 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, and Texas. It's really great. They've got community tabs too if you want to be part of the Prize Pick community. They've got guys like Drewski, Joe Budden, MMA champ Sugar Sean O'Malley. They've got all sorts of people there. And if you sign up today, you can get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive that $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. They've even got a new promo, Taco Tuesdays, 25% select player projections, all sorts of stuff that they've got. That's just one example, guys. They've got promotions all the time, new ones every other month, and not even every other month, maybe every week. That's our Prize Picks. They're locked in, man. They're helping you out. So go check out Prize Picks, guys. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, check that out. Download the app. Use promo code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 instantly after you play your first 5 to get that thing guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. And just like that, everybody, we are back thriving and vibing into this lovely segment on this show. Man, final segment. Crazy, right? I want to talk a little bit about one thing I want to mention is that Jackson Merrill in this game. First of all, great play by Manny Machado, by the way, in the top of the 6th. I forgot to mention this. Underrated play that people won't talk about as much, but Braves, they get a runner on base. Machado diving and making this crazy play, throwing the ball at the ground because that's the only way you could get it to second base. Getting the leadoff runner. That could have been a hit, could have been a whole lot bigger trouble. I like that we've seen some good defense from the Padres so far. We've seen some good moments. There's been a couple weird moments with Jerickson Profar, I will say. He's had a couple, but in fairness, that's to be expected. He's just not a very good defender. But otherwise, we've had some really good moments. Tatis, I think, almost nearly threw someone out in game 1, I'm pretty sure. But he looks pretty good out there with Tatis. And then you've got Jackson Merrill making some good plays too. He looks awesome out there in center field. He looks as confident as ever. Let me tell you, it rocks if you're a Padres fan right now, knowing that you have Jackson Merrill on your team and Tatis and Manny and oh man, it's so great. But Jackson Merrill, also a very nice defensive play in the top of the 9th inning. I'm not gonna lie to y'all, I was nervous, and some of you have asked, like, should Robert Suarez be removed from the closer role? My only opinion was that I think that they're going to probably keep him there because of the, managers like it when you have that consistency and when you have that experience as a closer. But I did say that I could see a world in which, given the matchup, that Jason Adam could come in. or Tanner Scott, because one, the latter has some closing experience. He's had some moments, especially, he was a high leverage reliever for the Marlins for a reason. And then Adam is used to being this committee guy, as you saw with the Tampa Bay Rays, where sometimes he'd close, sometimes he'd be a seventh inning guy, sometimes he'd be eighth inning. So like, he has some experience in that realm, but overall, you're still going to make it be Suarez. I mean, this is a guy who throws super, super hard. I'm curious, again, but it does depend, because he loves going to that fastball. Maybe if they go to a team that really likes crushing fastballs, maybe if it's like a top of a lineup, I could see a world in which maybe if it's like Ohtani, Betts, Freeman, that maybe they're like, maybe we need to have a pitcher that toys with them a little bit longer, and we don't want to dare Ohtani to be able to hit something, because Lord knows he always does. So I could see a situation like that arising, but Suarez comes up, 3 up, 3 down. Love to see that. And there was one moment in which Jackson Merrill, there was a ball hit by Jorge Soler, which I was dead scared, guys. Like, I was so terrified of this, because Jorge Soler has been very good before in the postseason, literally won the World Series MVP for the Braves. And he'd been pretty good with them in the second half. And he is a super power guy, right? Like, that is what he is. And that's basically it. Like, he is a guy who hits for power, and he smoked Robert Suarez's pitch, by the way. So like, I was kind of right to be a little bit nervous. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the funniest part, is I was kind of right. In that at bat against Jorge Soler, he hit the ball 109.3 miles per hour. It had an expected batting average of 760. But Jackson Merrill. And it's one of those plays that doesn't look hard, but it kind of was. That's a hard read to make. And at first, he makes an initial, moving in on the ball. But since he's so athletic, since he's so good, I mean, what an athlete. For him to be able to adjust to that little early mistake there on the ball and then travel backwards, he ends up making the catch, a little bit of a jump that he has to make. Awesome stuff. But a lot more difficult of a catch than I think people realize. Like, seriously, this man Soler smoked that ball, and he exactly proved why I was so scared, right? And you saw that Suarez was not throwing anything in the zone. The closest he did was his fifth pitch, I'm pretty sure, which was right on the outside corner. Like, he did not want to mess with this guy. He was throwing sinkers. He challenged him with one four-seam fastball, but otherwise, that was kind of it, right? Like, that's basically it. And he was challenging some guys. And then you had the Ramon Laureano at bat. Nothing really happened there. And then you had Travis d'Arnaud. Nothing really happened there with the pop-up. Although it was a little bit scary, not gonna lie. This is the Padres, man. They want to keep you on the edge of your seat. The Higashioka running into Solano, not running into him, but it was like a very gentle collision. Can I call it a gentle collision? Is that the term we can use for that? Where Solano just kind of like throws himself to the ground a little bit, and then Higgy makes it, like, a little bit falls over him. But it was they're both totally fine. But it was a little bit scary for a second, and then he patted him on the back, and it was great. It was really fun seeing Tatis and Merrill do a little bit jump. Those two are just like the young kids. It's really cool, and I wonder if, like, again, it's so hard to understand baseball locker room chemistry. I wonder if there's something to be said for Fernando Tatis Jr. to be around like a young, really energetic, ebullient kid in Jackson Merrill, just like him, a top level prospect. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's almost like he has someone that he's like seeing himself. He's like, hey, I remember when I was the superstar rookie and whatnot. I don't know if like there's that like dynamic, you know what I mean? And then you have Profar and him, they all get along. So the clubhouse chemistry is clearly a lot better than last year. And they actually mentioned on the broadcast that Joe Musgrove was like tasked as there was like a leadership committee or something like that. I forgot what they mentioned exactly on the broadcast. For those who've been listening to my pod for a while, no, I don't always listen to the broadcast. It's just a me thing. It's not necessarily a reflection of the broadcast. I actually think people complain too much about broadcasters every now and then, but like for me, it's just I like talking during games, and I just like having music in. So I just don't usually listen to it. I don't know. It's dumb. I know it's dumb, but I don't always listen to the broadcast. Unless I'm in like a outside in a big group or a party or a bar or something like that, then I have no choice but to listen to the broadcast, you know what I'm saying? But in this game, they did mention that, and you kind of see it. You really just see the energy with this team throughout. I know I keep repeating myself, but it has to keep being said. This Padres team has as good a vibe you could have. Unfortunately, the Musgrove injury, I understand everybody's really dejected over that, but hey, that's why you have Cease, that's why you have King. And remember, you can win with that, man. You can. You got to hope. I would be curious to see if they call up some new relievers, maybe a Sean Reynolds, maybe he comes up. I'm curious, like, do we see Martin Perez as a starter in one of these games? I would not be too surprised to see that. I really wouldn't, especially with this Musgrove news. And then you've got Yu Darvish, who Yeah, I'm a little bit nervous about him. Are you going to have to deploy him now? Yeah, probably. Does he want to get his revenge against the Dodgers? Probably. And I will tell you one thing, though. It is a bummer that Yu Darvish looked like he was going to be like just a guy that you wouldn't have to super rely on as much for the postseason because of how strong those first two guys were. But Yu Darvish, let me tell you, he likes pitching against the Dodgers, man. He does. Seriously, if you look at his splits, Yu Darvish has actually been quite good against the Dodgers in his career. Specifically in 15 games. In the 15 games that he started against the Dodgers, he's rocking a 2.27 ERA. Pretty dang good and a pretty decently high strikeout rate too. Again, don't get me wrong, sometimes this stuff is a little bit fluky. Like for some reason, he's got in 8 starts, he has a 5.62 against the Marlins. But even still, I don't care. I'll take it. Hopefully he can continue that. So at least, again, I'm just trying to pick out the kernels and give you guys some good information. So if Darvish is tasked with a start, which I imagine he will be, given this whole news, you could do a lot worse. And there are a lot of teams out there that are doing worse. And in fairness, the Dodgers, right? Like the Dodgers do have some injuries, so it'd be a little bit hypocritical for me to just kind of ignore that and say stop crying, but then to start bringing up that the Padres had some pitching rotation. Although I will say the Dodgers fans did a victory dance over our top 2 starters. I still haven't gotten over that in 2020. So I'm just saying that's the wrong fan base. But overall, guys, really good stuff. Super happy that we're moving on to the NLDS. Curious to see what happens with the Mets and Brewers tomorrow as well. I am, of course, rooting for the Mets because I'm a Francisco Lindor fan, and I've got a lot of Mets fans in my life, so rooting for them. We'll have to see if the Javi theory that the Brewers just aren't going to be able to win stands true, which I do think it will stand true. And then we'll see, Phillies versus Brewers, Phillies versus Mets, and then we've got Padres versus Dodgers. Really excited to see how this turns out. So far, playoff baseball has been really cool. And also, one last thing, I'm not as big of a hater as everybody else. But Josh Hader blowing that game to the Tigers, I know y'all saw that. R.I.P. Bozo, him making the comment about how, he lives rent-free in the Padres fans' head, a phrase that I am so damn tired of hearing. Everyone uses it wrong. Enough of saying that. Enough. That's for another time. But overall, this is a little bonus, guys. That makes the day just slightly better. I know a lot of you loved it. I know you guys did. I know you did. But that all being said, guys, that about does it for today's edition. One last thing I will say, I won't be able to, I might not be live tweeting as much for the Saturday game. I might not have an immediate, reaction or any sort of stuff, only because I will be in Virginia celebrating my sister's birthday. So if you're wondering, don't get me wrong, I'll have the game on a little screen or something like that. But I'm just saying that might be why you don't hear as much from me. But whatever. Until next time, guys, stay safe. And of course, stay faithful. My Fire Faithful homies. Send me some questions, by the way, for a mailbag too. We'll see you next time. Take care.